green thing's going out of it, says we're live. Apparently we're live at 60 frames a second. I don't think any of these cameras are set to 60 frames a second, but we're running at 60 frames a second, so woohoo!
Yeah. Well, YouTube's just flashed at me. Twitch is flashing at me.
Mate, I would totally take them to court right now.
So YouTube or Twitch?
Both of them as totally the in thing to take people that flash at you.
60 frames a sec.
There you go, yeah. Awesome, we are coming through.
Nailed it.
And we've got graphics again.
Yay!
Yay! Lovely graphics.
Yeah, because, because I fucked up because I didn't have the internet.
Oh yeah, is your internet working, yeah?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
and they did exactly what I thought they were going to do. They lift and shifted the line, and I was furious. So, ugh.
How did they take to fix it?
They came down like a couple of days later.
Yeah, because you're running for games night, so you must have got fixed it then. So
yeah. Yes, they weren't too bad, but like I say, the one thing that I was really concerned they were going to do was just literally lift and shift my line. And they just lift and shifted my line. So where my line was faulty, they've literally just gone and given it to someone else.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do that. Apparently, they do that quite a lot. I know 2 people now that have had their lines just lifted and given to someone else. They tend to go for customers who don't necessarily use the internet as much. So, like maybe Granny just kind of watches the occasional YouTube video, or gets involved on a random voice or video call or whatever.
Post memes to Facebook and
that kind of thing. And so they go, well, Granny here's paying for the full ball package, but is only using dial up. So we'll take her line that's good and give it to you, and she can have your shitty line because she'll never notice. And that they do that a lot. I personally think it's absolutely terrible, considering they, realistically, rather than hobbling this old equipment through, they should just invest in the next step and go fibre to the premises. But no.
Oh, I thought that they decided that you weren't a heavy internet user.
Weird, huh? Absolutely. Yeah. I was just like, what the fuck? I mean, I ended up getting a bill from my cellular provider, not because there's a spending cap on my line, but they were like, you used a lot of bandwidth in a couple of weeks. What's going on here? And I was like, oh, it's nothing, casually, just it's nothing.
You see, my mobile phone provider doesn't worry. When I went on holiday last year, and when I say holiday, couldn't do holidays last year. When I stayed, I was working and staying over at a friend's farm last year. I call it a holiday because I was working most of the day and then just chilling the rest of it.
Yeah, sure.
I was on my obviously dial up on my phone type job. I was on the internet, and I'd tripled my use in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
They bothered to tell me. They weren't worried.
Yeah,
they weren't worried.
Well, they didn't make a huge fuss of it. But I mean, so what was your usage? What was your tripled usage?
About 90 gigs.
90 gigs, yeah. I went 40 gigs in a couple of days to start with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I that normally in a month I use between. Normally in a month I use about 30 gigs. Normally in a month.
Actually, that's not bad. That's not too bad. Since lockdown and all that started, I've barely used my phone's data at all.
Yeah, I use it quite a lot because I find Wi-Fi really slow on my phone, so I use 4G all the time.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that.
So,
although that said, I'm on a smartphone detox at the moment. So
yeah, you were saying about doing it last week.
Yeah, so I'm not actually using now for the last 2 weeks. I'm using just a regular dumb phone, just so I can disconnect from the internet and avoid people's drama. Although it has been found that regardless of whether or not I deal with people in small chunks over the day and they annoy me throughout the day, or just one chunk in the evening, I end up being equally frustrated by the end of it. So
it's the overall quantity of it rather than the frequency.
Yeah, it seems that way. Well, because it's just all the same fluff. It's really, oh god. I said yesterday I made a video about algorithms censoring the internet. Well, not really censoring the internet, but what would you rather? Some poor average Joe human having to look through the cesspool that is the internet these days because of all the normies on it.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely losing their mind. I really hope they have good healthcare packages. Or would you rather have a mindless algorithm that just goes, look, here's a whitelist, here's a blacklist, anything that's on this, just get rid of it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's better to have a system whereby people have to say you've got it wrong, and then it's reviewed by a human.
Yeah.
than the other way around because it's not feasible.
No, well, I said that as well. There's far too much content going up for you to even have humans go through it all manually.
Look at YouTube. How I can't remember what the stats. It's something like every a minute. There's 4 or 5 hours worth of footage uploaded every minute or something.
Oh, it's way more than that. It's way more.
Is it now more? Yeah, it's something crazy. I know, but it's physically impossible to have a human go through it all.
They'd have to employ an entire country to go through.
Yeah, I know India's quite cheap, but not that cheap.
Yeah, they realistically, if you wanted to give them that many computers, they'd need far more power. So
yeah, it's just not feasible. So it's there's a reason they do it, and it's part of it is cost saving. At the same time, it's just simple resources.
Yeah.
So, but I'm being censored by YouTube. Well, the album might got a bit confused. Where it gets frustrating though.
Go on.
Where it gets a bit frustrating though is when people post stuff that clearly is fine.
Mm-hmm.
They then appeal it, and you can just tell the person at the other end doesn't even bother to look at it.
Yeah, or they don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah. Thunderfoot, who I'm not a great fan of, but I do occasionally watch.
I know the chap.
Yeah, he's a smart guy, but he's a bit of a cock.
Yeah.
He had one of his videos censored about COVID, and it was basically because he was basically debunking all the myths about it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it saw COVID in the myths, it just picks usually clips from these other videos to demonstrate what people were saying. The algorithm picked up and just banned his video, and he did a hell of a job getting it back on there because basically had to push it back to YouTube 4 or 5 times. So they actually went and actually looked and go, "Oh, actually, yeah, what you've done is fine."
Well, they've actively been kind of going against anything that says COVID or pandemic or whatever because they seem to think it's fake news or pushing a certain agenda kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's part. So I've noticed. So anything that mentions COVID has that little banner appear.
Yeah.
That says, can't click here to find more information about it and all that sort of stuff. I've noticed that appears on all the COVID videos now. So, but to be fair, again, they had to be because there was so much disinformation out there.
Yeah.
So much people who were just reading, either making stuff up in their head or regurgitating stuff they'd read that was made up as fact. And it's dangerous because there's a large group of people out there, and it's the same for any news source, any newspapers, so forth. There's a lot of people there who will just, whatever is written, they'll just take it as read.
Yeah, no, I get you. They'll take it as gospel. I mean, I know some people who they don't even believe it exists. Hundreds of thousands of people dead don't believe it exists.
Yeah.
So, that's humans for you, though. I mean, I'll tell you why I brought up the algorithm thing, actually. It's because someone posted a comment on Facebook, and I posted something derogatory about myself. And then I got a warning on Facebook for saying that this is against terms of service. If you post comments like this in the future, you may risk losing your account, kind of thing. And I'm like, I was just taking the piss out of myself. But again, the algorithm only understands a blacklist of words. It doesn't understand the context of what it is I'm actually saying.
It has got. I think they have got some contextual awareness, but it's not very good.
Well, yeah, for sure. This is standard computer context awareness, which isn't, it's not great.
Yeah. There is some context awareness there, but it must have been pretty bad what you said for it to consider what you're doing. What did it say? It was a boost or hurrah? What did it sort of...
Yes, it said it comes across. It's the same kind of content that it would consider bullying behavior.
Right. Okay. So I thought you were bullying yourself.
Yeah, basically. And I was like, okay, interesting. That's very cute. Thank you for protecting me from myself, Facebook. Which is fair.
I love you, Facebook. It's like a therapist.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I have to be careful what I put on Facebook because I have an Oculus Quest 2.
Yeah.
So if I lose my Facebook account, I lose my Quest 2. Which is that's one of the only reasons really why I'm still on Facebook, because Facebook's pissing me off something chronic of late. So much bollocks on there, it's not even funny, but then that is Facebook for you. Also, can I just go on just a little rant about people who are going on about WhatsApp's terms of service? They've changed their privacy policies and all that. Okay, so I'm only a recent user of Facebook because I joined a group with you, Ram, and they primarily use WhatsApp for their communications, and I don't really like WhatsApp, to be honest with you. I use it more now, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I've personally been using Signal messaging now for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer than that. And that's actually the messaging client that a lot of people are running to since WhatsApp said they were going to change their terms of service as far as metadata and all that's concerned. They're going to start sharing it to Facebook. So I actually looked it up. For anyone that doesn't know, WhatsApp is using the same encryption algorithms as Signal because they're designed by Open Whisper systems. The people who do Signal, they share the same encryption. The main differences between Signal and WhatsApp at this point is that Signal don't hold any metadata on you at all, not times that you go on, not who you message. All they literally say is that you have been on Signal because they have a record of your phone number to verify that you are a person. If you think that's a little bit too tinfoil hatty and you don't want to give them a phone number either, then you go with a client called Session that will generate a number to identify you by rather than you giving a phone number or whatever. WhatsApp will track your, I think it's your phone number, when you've been online, and who you talk to. So when you've been online, what device you've been online with, and who you're talking to. They won't make note of who, what you're talking about, because they can't, because it's encrypted, end-to-end encrypted.
They just see the connections.
Exactly. So they're just literally connecting that metadata. And it should also be noted that your backups, which I think are done on like Google Drive and iCloud, I could be wrong, I don't know, but the backups, from what I understand, local and online, are not encrypted. So, but then from what I understand also, iPhone backups aren't encrypted once they hit the iCloud. So the local copy is encrypted, but the online one apparently isn't, because that's apparently how the US government got past a certain phone they were trying to get into a while ago. But for honestly, because I saw a friend's friend posting about leaving WhatsApp for Signal. As I say, as a Signal user, it made me laugh though, because I'm like, you are QQing about your privacy and being tracked and watched by Facebook, and you are posting it on Facebook. Yeah. From your smartphone.
Exactly. I had the same thing. I had someone send a message round when I saw being announced and people like posting on Reddit. I was like, well, what's new? It's so now get to Facebook. Well, if you use, most people use Facebook. What difference this is going to make? Actually, no difference to you.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair, even if you don't have a Facebook account, they have a shadow profile on you anyway, based on the like buttons that are scattered around the internet.
Exactly. So I saw that, and then it was someone messaged me who isn't tech savvy, and basically said, "Oh, they're go switch," and basically say, "Oh, you need to switch to using Signal for your communication because WhatsApp have changed their terms of service." And I wrote a reply along the lines of basically what you said. It's like, use Facebook, use Twitter, use Instagram. They have all this information about you anyway. It's going to make absolutely sole difference. Mm-hmm. And really, the stuff information they're collecting is not really any of real annual use. It's just normal data mining stuff to say advertising. I'm not going to bother changing. I can't be bothered to change because I'm not worried. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, I can't be asked to debate this. I'm just going to not bother. I just didn't reply at all. I just ignored it.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious, though, to now see that there's a lot more people I know who are on Signal. I was like, I told you guys years ago. And you were like, I'm just going to keep on using WhatsApp and Facebook. And now all of a sudden, because it's the cool thing to do, they all, jump ship.
Yeah, it's funny how people get really paranoid about WhatsApp. I mean, Facebook did it for years. Twitter did it for years. If you have a Microsoft account, which most people do, do it for years. If you have if you have a PS4 account, or not PlayStation Plus account,
just a PlayStation account,
that's doing it. If you have a Google account, it's doing it.
I mean, let's be fair.
This isn't new.
And we should also say this to people, because there's one key point that I missed out, actually, in that if you're worried about all of this metadata being collected, please understand that your Windows 10 machine is tracking your mouse cursor movements. There's nothing particularly malicious about it, but I don't see people going, oh my god, Windows is tracking me, I'm now going to go and use Linux. Or my Mac is doing... What's that called again? Telemetry data. They're collecting telemetry data. Your phone is doing the exact same thing. They all are. And yet I don't see anyone going, let's all leave and go to Linux.
It's for user interface
Yeah,
purposes.
it's to basically then tailor the user interface. Like, oh, are they using this kind of application
Yeah.
more? Are they using smart tiles more? Should we maybe reassign where these smart tiles go? Should we maybe enlarge them?
Yeah.
Are we finding that
even
there are more accidental clicks? So should we shrink them down in size?
Yeah, that's right. It's that is all it's doing. It's just basically making stuff easier. And again, as I think we said a couple episodes ago, they are tracking you, but not you.
Yeah,
it's data. It's raw. It's who you are. You, Joe Blogs, are lost in the noise, but it's a profile about you that they then use to tailor stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually know who you are. So there isn't. Oh, this is Joe Blogs' personalized tailor. It's people with this profile of whom Joe Blogs happens to be one will like this setup.
I mean, they could realistically put a lot of those data points together, because you often hear about a lot of those anonymized databases being found, and then people doing a little bit of jiggery pokery and going, yeah, I've managed to put all these points together. Now we know where you are, where you shop, and all that kind of stuff. But again, realistically, what are you going to do in this day and age? Like, what are you going to do?
For what benefit would there are for a company with millions of users, or even just thousands of users, that being a possibility you could do it is actually irrelevant, because you're not going to, because it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth the time and the effort to go to that finer detail.
Well, it's like I said to people, if someone really wants to track you, hack you and track you, they will do it. Like, even me with my Linux rigs, if they want to get me, they'll get me. And if it means they have to come into my house, I think I've probably got even more trouble than if they were just going to try and find data points online. But no one's that important, realistically.
You don't matter.
No. People like to think they matter, but they don't. Unless you're like on the police's radar because you're a criminal, you don't matter. No one cares about you. Or a high-profile activist or whatever.
Do you think this is actually part of the subculture that everybody thinks they're important now?
No, everyone thinks they're important. Right.
That's what I mean. I'm saying, do you think this is why people are like this? Everybody thinks they're important. So when they hear about this sort of stuff, they think, well, I'm important, they're going to track me. Do you think that's part of the sort of it ties into that mentality?
Yes, because back in the day, when we were younger...
Can I just say, before we go on, welcome to the Randos Podcast, episode 161.
Right, Hi, guys. So,
I'm the SuffolkRam, he's Skazz. Right, carry on.
Hi, and I'm going off on a rant, so welcome. This is my rant hour. It rags me off, because back when we were kids, right, if you wanted to be a dick to someone, you had to be a dick to their face, right? For the most part. You know, and there was always a risk that you'd push around the nerd and the nerd would snap and kick the shit out of you. Right? There's not so much of a risk of that anymore, because you're doing it all online, and there are just so many people out there who can't handle. So now, since all the normies have got access to the internet, they all seem to think that their opinions are important. So when we were kids, someone would voice an opinion, you'd say it was stupid, and you'd tell them to shut the fuck up. Right? And then that would be the end of it. They'd have nowhere else to go with it, because they've been shut down in a public forum kind of thing. You know, they stood on their soapbox, they were told to shut the fuck up, job done. Now, they all have access to the internet, so they've all been given, quite sadly, a voice. And you can't shut them up, because they're online, and they will find like-minded people all around the world.
Yep.
They end up in an echo chamber, and they start feeding their own paranoia. They start feeding their own kind of egos, their self-value, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They can't help it. Do you want to know how many people have crumbled around me the second I've actually said to them, as you've said just there, you're not important. Like, nothing you do right now actually matters. You could be jerking off on camera. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, you could do that for months and no one would even know you're doing it. And then, I don't know, eventually you'll end up becoming a fucking meme. But up until that point, no one gives a shit. Like, if you're really that worried, right, use Linux. Oh, yeah, but I don't want to use Linux because, you know, I want to do this and I want to do that. So, well, then shut the fuck up.
I want all the practicalities I want all the features of Facebook, but I don't want to have them collect my data. Well, then perhaps you better go to a paid alternative so they don't have to collect that data on you.
And then they're all like, yeah, but I don't want to pay for it. Well, then you can't have it. You are the product.
How do you think Facebook does not stay in business for the kind of its own heart? Nor does Google, nor does YouTube. How do you think these companies survive?
Mm-hmm.
I've said it so many times. They are advertising companies, and you are who they're advertising to. And the only way they can make that money, make revenue, is if they give you the right adverts. So to do that, they have to profile you.
And this
isn't new. This isn't new.
Well, we've mentioned how they used to profile people with those like shop and save cards, didn't they? You know, you'd go in and then all of a sudden you'd like, oh, hey, I've got vouchers for like bananas from Tesco or whatever. It's like, yeah, because you've been...
Right, even more basic than that. If you're a takeaway and you want to drop some leaflets off about your takeaway, are you going to drop leaflets off 10 miles away from where you live?
No, of course not, because that's not your business area.
No, you talk with a mile or 2 mile radius of where you live or where you're based. That's targeted advertising.
Yeah.
You've profiled these people based on where they live, that they might want to use your takeaway.
And just because so many people have a voice these days, please, please, please understand that profiling is not racist, it is not sexist, it is not this, it is not that, it is just profiling. Yeah,
in terms of this internet stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, but don't get me wrong, everything can become sexist, racist, like everything can become sexist and racist. But then that's like saying the game of Guess Who is sexist and racist, and that's profiling.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Well, yeah, like the way that game works, like, oh, is it a man or a woman? Oh, you can't say that,
I think it's when profiling is used for... when you assume something about a negative
for manipulating
when you assume that so and so must be bad because they are XYZ, that's when it becomes the bad kind of profiling.
Oh yeah, but that's a case of when it is just white line, grey line, neutral profiling. It's just profiling.
It is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. There's bad.
No, I understand. I'm saying, like, so when it starts to focus on biases, then you're starting to look at the, oh, hey, white people, they're really rich. Oh, black people, they commit loads of crimes. Absolute tosh. But then that's when profiling starts to get a bit squiffy. Profiling itself isn't, like, gathering statistics is not racist or sexist. It's what you tend to use them for to manipulate the groups that you're trying to target. That's when you start to have problems.
And it's when you start abusing, like picking and choosing statistics and so forth to prove points. That's when
I can't remember what the actual term for that is, but that's where you literally just
cherry picking.
Yeah, you literally go, well, that data doesn't fit my curve, and this
I'll ignore that.
Yeah, and you just throw all of this down. Annoying, but it happens.
Yeah, it's happened. That's the bad. But in profiling as a whole, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So profiling is what we're talking about. Is more this person A and person B, person A and person B. They both bought these 9 products in the last 6 months. Person B has now bought this product. Statistically, person A probably will also want to buy that product.
Yeah.
Therefore, we'll advertise it to them.
Yeah.
That's the benign version of profiling. The bad version is person A is a woman. I'm just going to advertise this product because I'm assuming she's going to want it.
Yeah.
Or she's not ticked any of the other boxes about it.
I'm not going to market high-profile real estate to, I don't know, people with black people in this wage bracket. Yeah. Exactly. Which is stupid.
Yeah, that's when it becomes the bad kind of profiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like everything, like statistics, you said statistics is a tool that can be used for good or bad. Profiling is the same thing. It's not necessarily bad, but it can be abused in certain situations, and there's bias profiling as well, which is when people... But it's like everything gets a bit of a bad... There's a bad rep around it. But I just want to make it clear to...
Yeah, sure, of course.
Everybody who might be listening. So, anyway.
Go on then, let's go.
Shall we move on to more proper, nicer things now?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so... Hey, what have you been up to, Skazz?
Well, I've been going through like this kind of really negative kind of game mode where I'm like, you know what, all these games kind of suck. I hopped onto my the Linux side of my rig again the other day, and you remember when I first went into proper Linux gaming, so I actually built myself a dedicated Linux rig. I started to play loads of random games that I wouldn't have necessarily played just because they had a Linux version. Well, I was on my Linux rig the other day, and it came up with a game called Loop Hero. And I was like, it looks cute, it's £15. Nah, maybe not. And it kept on getting recommended to me, and I noticed that a few people I knew had picked it up from the Linux scene. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take a punt on it, because it does have a Linux port. I'm on Linux. Let's give it a go. I mean, it can't be that bad, right? 15 quid. And it's a super simple game, and I've somehow managed to burn 7 hours in it. Like, in like 2 or 3 sittings. And for me, that's really saying something, because that's a standard AAA game is between 4 and 8 hours. So the fact that I've burnt, like 7.5 on a little indie game, like right off the bat, is insane. The fact I can sit there and go, I'm just going to, play a little bit of this, and then look at the clock. Where's the sun gone?
Yeah, thanks for that, yeah.
It's
I've
kind
been
of
having that in my game as well, so we've both been suffering from this.
So the trick with Loop Hero is it's a... I don't know how to describe it, because genre-wise, it kind of mixes a load of stuff together. It's a retro, like pixel graphic, pixel art, roguelite card game that a lot of people would think is a clicker, but isn't a clicker. So you play as the Loop Hero, and the entire world has been kind of erased from existence by this demon thing. I don't know a huge amount about the story, because I don't think I've played it enough. It's a really simple game mechanically, but then it also seems like there's quite a lot of depth there once you get through that kind of layer of tinfoil. You play as the Loop Hero, and everyone in the world has basically forgotten everything. Like, nothing exists except the Loop Hero and this loop. You're on like a circle, or like this random shaped loop that you just walk around. Loop Hero walks automatically 1 or 2 times speed. Okay? Loop Hero attacks automatically at a normal speed, right? At a given speed. So you move at 1 or 2 times speed, you attack automatically too, so you just set the little guy off and he walks around the loop. As you walk around the loop, time passes. Every day you get health back, and every time you fight an enemy, they will maybe drop items that you can equip. So like, shields, swords, armor, or they could drop terrain, cards. And you're on a grid. I can't remember the actual size of the grid, but it's quite a big grid. Like, imagine the rectangle we've got our cameras in now, Ram, and is separated into a grid.
Yep.
And you can place these cards either on the outside of the loop, or as a way to change the loop's path. Like, not the shape of it, but what kind of terrain it is. So it just starts off as like a regular dirt path. But then you could maybe turn one square of it into a meadow, or one square of it into a graveyard, or maybe put a vampire house on the outside of the path, and it'll have an area of effect on it, so that a vampire can spawn within that area on the path. Or you can set up mountains. You'll get like mountain cards, and those all go off the side of the path, and they will say increase your defense. So the more mountains and rocks you have around the loop, the more health and defense you have, kind of thing. You can set up beacons of light to stop more monsters from spawning on the path and things like that. So when you initially walk the path, there are only slimes. Nothing but slimes. So they're really weak, low-level enemies. As you get cards and you place them on the path, different monsters will spawn. You make the loop more difficult to your choosing. As you go through these loops and do these battles, you gain materials. And you keep those, okay? Every time you go around the loop of the path, right, you can get a little bit of health back, and the level difficulty goes up. So even if you don't put items on the path, or things on the path, the enemies will keep getting stronger. So if you just leave it, eventually you will just die, unless you keep an eye on your armor and other stuff like that to increase your stats as you go. You can escape from the loop at any time. You can retreat. If you retreat, you get to keep 60% of your equipment that you've gathered. So not like armor and that, but like resources. So ore and other stuff, you can keep that. If you die, you get to keep 30% of it. And if you beat a boss and escape, you get to keep all of it. So when you... I'm sorry, it's a really weird one to explain. But believe me, it's really fun, even though you're not actually doing anything. You can play the game one-handed with just your mouse. It's really bizarrely fun. So with the resources, what you use the resources for is when Loop Hero first leaves the loop after the tutorial, you build a campfire. And campfires seem to attract other survivors. And other survivors explain to you that they don't remember anything. You don't remember anything, they don't remember anything. But when they came to your fire, anything around that fire, they seem to start to remember things. Otherwise, without the Loop Hero's influence, let's say, for example, you look at a stick. All of a sudden, hey, I'm focused on this stick. That's a stick. I remember sticks. I can do things with sticks. Then you turn around, and all of a sudden, the stick disappears because you're not paying attention to it anymore. And then you forget that sticks are a thing. You could be talking to someone because someone has randomly materialized in front of you. You see them, you start talking to them, you engage with them, and then all of a sudden, the second you stop paying attention to them, they cease to be.
So you can never blink.
They just fade from existence. So yeah, don't blink. Don't blink, don't turn around, don't sleep. Like, they're gone. The whole world is gone. Every single loop, the world goes back to black, and it's just the path. And then Loop Hero builds around it until he can get to the boss to reform the world.
So is it the same? Do characters? So is it like, do the characters that, like, when you go around the loop again, do the characters reappear, or they've gone for good? So
when you have two zones, initially it is just the loop, which is random every time. Like, the shape of it is random every time. And then you have kind of the base camp as a separate screen. And the base camp is kind of where you get most of your story delivered to you. And that's where you've built your little campfire. And the people that basically turn up at the camp stay there. Once Loop Hero makes that initial bonfire, that campfire, people start to remember things. Loop Hero then brings back materials and says, well, hey, random person, like, you build a farm, and all of a sudden a random farmer turns up. And it's like, oh, hey, a farm, I can do this. And they stay there. You're starting
so you're not counting these people on the loop, then you're counting these at the camp only.
Yes.
Right.
The people you tend to meet on the loop on your little adventure
are the ones who fade away.
They're monsters.
Right.
So, like, you might, when you initially see a vampire, a little text box will come up where the vampire is explaining what the fuck is going on for vampires. And that really, he's not seen another human in hundreds of years. He has kind of existed outside of existence. And now he's gone insane because he's not been able to feed. And you should realistically just let him kill you so that he can save the world. You find, as you build mountains on the terrain, once you build a cluster of stone or mountain cards, you build an even bigger kind of, Everest-style mountain. Harpies will come down from the mountain. And they will then tell you the blight of their species. You meet little, like, trolls and goblins on the path, and they will do the same thing. But then every other time you face them, they don't have any dialogue. When you beat, like, the lich, or when you meet the lich, the boss, the lich will then say, like, what the fuck? You're not supposed to be able to do this. I'm just going to crush you, and then try to figure out how to stop anomalies like you from appearing and messing with my little plans, kind of thing. But human survivors tend to only appear at the base camp that you've built with the campfire. And then they are the ones that help Loop Hero go through the loop from then on. So you gather the resources to build up your camp, to get buffs and equipment for the next time you go around the loop. So if you get the materials to build, say, a blacksmith, well, then you might start the next loop with some armor, rather than you having to do like an entire loop to get a shield, a sword, and some armor. You'll start with some. Because as I say, every time you go around the loop, the enemies get stronger. So it just gives you a little bit of a head start. And then you can level up the blacksmith to get high level equipment right at the start. You can say set up like an alchemist or whatever, and then they will give you a few potions at the start of a loop, so that every time you go around the loop, you get your some of your potions back, and if your health goes under a certain amount, you'll top up with your potions that they've given you. It's really interesting. It's because of that. Like, you might even get new cards as you unlock new parts of your camp, kind of thing. And then depending on what cards you put down on the loop or around the loop, well, that dictates what resources you get as well. So let's say, for example, I can't even remember what the type of card is you get from graveyards. But let's say you needed those materials to build something. If you don't put any graveyards on your loop, well, you'll never get those materials to be able to upgrade the base. So there's a lot more depth to it after you scratch the surface than there really seems to be. And it's got a really cool kind of synthy chiptune soundtrack too. I mean, I just found myself just sitting here, just hit the button, character walks around the loop. I'm just fixated on, oh, hey, look, I've almost filled my inventory. I better reorganize my character equipment. Because when you fill up your inventory and your cards, so you've got cards and inventory, if you say fill up every grid on your inventory, well, then the last items will just drop off, and those will become resources too. And same with cards. Any unused cards will just get kind of binned off and turned into resources that you can take back to the camp. But I mean, outside of that, there's not really a lot to say. It's one of those ones that you really have to play to kind of get the groove of it, because, as I say, it kind of falls on the borders of so many different little genres. Like, it's a card game, it's almost a clicker, but it's not a clicker because you don't really do anything to interact with it as such. Just, oh, hey, change my armor, place a card on the map. Change my armor again, place another card on the map. And you're just doing that. Just the guy's walking around by himself. And you keep on doing that until you fight a boss or until you run away.
It sounds very weird.
Mate, it is weird, but for like I think it's $15 for the game with the soundtrack. It's really, really fun. Like, really fun. I completely was just like, I ain't gonna like this. And as I say, I've put in 7 hours. It's really nicely drawn. It'll run on a pasty. Like, the character designs are really nicely drawn. The music's really nice. It's kind of I don't mean to make this sound bad. Like, this is not a negative. Like, it's a game that I could literally put on, have the soundtrack blaring through my speakers, and then go, right, I'm just gonna set it to 2 times speed, and I'm gonna waddle off to the kitchen and make myself a coffee. And then I'll come back and I'll look at my screen. I'll go, oh shit, I've got some better armor here. Quickly equip that, and drop these next terrain cards down, and then I can just quickly walk off, make myself some breakfast, come back. Or like, you could have a podcast on in the background, or be watching the telly and still get the same kind of groove out of the game. But yeah, I've found it really, really fun, and a bunch of people I know have picked it up, and they've really enjoyed it too.
So it sounds interesting.
So, like I said, you're not actually doing anything with it, and you can still sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours, just going, hey, look at the little guy walking around the loop. Look at the little guy fighting the vampires and the skeletons that I've put down.
Oh, look, I'm dying again. Oh,
yeah, that's it. Oh, look, oh no, I'm about to get wrecked because I probably shouldn't have put that, the vampire house next door to that line of graveyards I put down. Oh god, because every like day or 2 days or 3 days, like, each terrain piece will have a spawn rate on it. So like every 3 days a vampire will spawn. Sometimes you might end up finding yourself having to pile through like 10 or 15 monsters just to travel like 3 spaces on the grid for your loop.
What is the point of putting on these monster spawns? Is it just for XP purposes, or is it actually a point to put down like vampire
Resources.
spawning? It's resources.
Yeah, like I say, if you want a certain resource, you have to put down.
You're farming them basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
And plus, like you don't, if you don't put down like your resource cards, so like your mountains, your graveyard cards, your vampire house cards, your marshland cards, whatever they are, if you don't put them down, you'll never face the Lich. Because the more you develop the world, all of a sudden the Lich is like, what the fuck is going on? People aren't supposed to be remembering this. It's supposed to be nothing but darkness. And then as you build up like a little world on the loop, like with villages and, you put like a village card with farm cards next to them for like health boosts. You put a couple of vampire house cards down, put a bunch of mountains around, put like meadows and stuff around. These all dictate your stats and the enemies you face and the materials you can gather. But eventually you've built up enough of a world to get the Lich's attention to then try and wipe you out. Yeah, it's neat. It's worth trying.
Cool. Well, sounds cool.
Always pick the really awkward ones to explain, but it's one you really have to.
Oh, you wait till I try and explain my one. I've been trying to figure out how to explain it since I played it last week, and I still haven't figured it out.
Well, I mean, I was gonna write about Loop Hero. I was actually gonna write out a chunk about it, so I could just say like I could be a bit more clear and a bit concise, like more concise about it. But fuck it. So what have you been playing, Ram?
I'm playing Disco Elysium, which is going to be another game that's going to be quite hard to explain. It was at a sort of a request. Ex-podcaster Middlemeister.
That's a bit cruel to say ex-podcaster. He just hasn't turned up in a while.
Well, he's dead to me now, as far as I'm concerned.
So what did he communicate with you from the grave?
He communicated with me far. Yeah. He's got his PS5 and he's happy now. So he messaged me on the aforementioned WhatsApp and said, "Have you played Disco Elysium?" I said, "No, I want to play. I haven't got around to playing it yet. It's on I've got my wish list." He goes, "Oh, well, they're releasing the final cut version of it for the PlayStation 5 in March, and they've put full voice acting. So it would be worthwhile me picking up." I said, "Well, let me have a look for you, see where it is." And it turned out I actually owned it. Can't remember when I bought it, but I must have bought it at some point in the past. It came out in 2019, so at some point in the past year and a bit, I've bought this game. So I said, I'll tell you what. I said, for you, Middlemeister, I will play this game. I'll talk about it on the next podcast for you. So here we are. So it's okay. How do I explain this? It's an RPG, but what I call a light RPG.
Right.
So you have 4. So just character creation point, you have 4 attributes, which are intellect, psyche. So I think it's physical. What was it? Physique, and motoric skills. And these have 6 sub skills in them, and so intellect will be things like logic. Rhetoric, sort of reasoning, visual calculus, like how to visualize scenes. They're also sort of mental concepts. Psyche will be things like empathy, and bits and pieces like this. It's all they also have a theme based on in physical, obviously, and sort of motor would be things like hand-eye coordination, and physical would be things like endurance. And what these translate into is how it works is your attributes effectively. So each of these sub skills have a maximum amount of points you can put into them. That maximum amount of points is capped by whatever your attribute skill is. So if I set my attribute skill to 5, all those sub skills can only have 5 skill points added into them by default.
Sure, I get it.
And then so my because I like to go for a talky, smart character. My physique, I saw motoric skill, which is your hand-eye coordinations. I've only got set to 2, so none of my skills can go above 2. There are some ways around that, but in general, that's your limit. So that's all. And so when you spend your skill points, you've got an upper cap to what you can do. So your attributes will give you a general how your character is going to develop, and then your actual individual sub skills are what work. Pretty much the whole game is it is all based around dice rolls. There is no.
So you're talking by the sounds of it when you said it's like an RPG. As soon as you started
It's
mentioning,
a light RPG, yeah.
Well, as soon as you started even mentioning like the way that you build your characters, I started thinking Fallout 1 and 2, Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate,
yeah,
a lot of the Western RPGs.
Yeah, it's a lot. I said it's not got the complexity of like the Fallout system. Like, there's not that complexity, but it's very. I call it sort of. I don't want to say it's simple. It's a streamlined system, very streamlined. So how they actually work in game. So everything's dice rolls. There's no. It's really more like a point and click game where you walk around, or you can walk around the environment, but it's more about talking, interacting with people, so forth. And everything you do, or most things you do, are done with a skill check. And how that works is the game rolls. Whatever the skill test will have a value assigned to it, between I presume the lowest will be, let's say, 2. I've not seen much, and the highest I've seen so far is 20. And how that works is it's 2d6, and so every these skill checks will also be related to one of your sub skills.
Yeah.
So let's say it's empathy. So it'll be 2d6 plus the attribute that defines empathy. So if your attribute is 2, they'll add that on, plus the actual sub-skills level. So if your attribute in theory, if you say set your psyche level attribute to 3, your empathy skill by itself starts at 0 because it's got no skill points. That can go up to 3. So your actual bonus can vary between from 3 to 6, depending on how many points you've got empathy. Mm-hmm. So you've already got a head start with the high attribute skills. You've already got a head start on all tests related to them, but you can make it even better by improving your sub skills.
That's basically like how Neverwinter Nights in that system worked.
Yeah. So and you can calculate this yourself. I mean, it tells you a percentage chance you're going to succeed. You can soon calculate in your head by, I need to roll this on 2d6. Being a Warhammer player, I'm used to rolling 2d6. Mm-hmm. So I'm adding them together. So I sort of look at it and I think I need to roll this on 2d6, and I'm just in my head it trips. I know what I need to do. Now, to improve your odds, because obviously there might be certain tricks you can't do. It has a clothing system. So you can pick clothing. Clothing will basically add a value onto and take stuff away, take numbers off. But like a certain pair of glasses will like add +1 to logic. So when you do a logic check, you'll get an extra 1 added to that dice roll. So I had enough clothes that my logic value was 12. So even on a 20 plus, as long as I roll a 6 on 2d6, I'm going to pass it. Or 8 on 2d6, I'm going to pass it. So it's adds on. The basic sort of storyline is you wake up in a sort of hotel room, and you have no memory of this place, what's going on. Now, before you wake up, you have a conversation with your brain, specifically your ancient lizard brain and your limbic system, and you have a conversation with them. And Elizabeth's like saying, "Nah, you don't want to wake up. You don't want to wake up." And you have this conversation about who you are, what you're doing. You have a little chat with them, and then eventually you wake up, and you're basically what's happening. You have gone on a massive bender, and you've drunk yourself completely oblivious. You've forgotten what you've done the last few days. You've forgotten who you are. You're fully amnesic. Your room's a mess. You've smashed it all up. You've broken the sink. You've got all such, and you basically start with, "I don't know who I am." Nothing at all. So you're a typical amnesic hero. So, but player plays into the sort of story a lot, because every time you meet another character, they're like, "I remember what you did the other night," and you're like, "I don't remember what I did the other night." Or you might try and play it off and say, "Oh yes, I did, yeah," but and you might try and bluff your way through if you want. Mm-hmm. So you're basically your cop. What you've soon established after waking up. Well, you establish you are a cop for starters after you wake up, is that you arrive like 3 days previous. You arrive because there'd been a murder, and someone had been hung from a tree in the backyard of this inn you're staying at, and someone had called your precinct, and because this sort of area it's set is like, it's an area where it's like basically it's run down. No one really likes to live there. The police don't really care about there. So actually, no police force there. It's like there's a like the union sort of run the place. Think Great Yarmouth, and that's sort of where you're working in.
Right. I'd rather not, but okay.
It did make me feel you are playing it. So you basically have been caught. Someone anonymously called the police. Said there's been dead body. It's been back there about sort of nearly a week now. You might want to come have a look. So you got sent down, and you are basically meant to investigate it. But what you've established for the first 3 days, you did nothing but just got drunk every day, and basically do nothing. That's what you did. It is, yeah.
I mean, I would if I went to Yarmouth. That's literally all I would do for days.
It's implied. I've been reading between the lines. It's not outright stated. Reading between the lines and what the source of the dialogue that comes up is. It's implied, and this is very. I mean, I figured this out. This is all like implied in the first sort of 10 minutes of the game. It's implied that your wife has just left you before you got sent down here. Your wife left before you got sent down here. Basically, you can't cope, and you basically just hit the bottle and sort of depression and grief over the whole situation. Once you sort of wake up, you meet there's another officer there from a different precinct, because apparently this area though is not controlled by two precincts. They both sort of like want to pretend they've got sort of control over it. So it's like so when one was saying one guy down, the other one sent one down as well to have like a little, almost a pissing match, basically, as they.
Yeah, I get it.
And this guy describes it, but he basically is going to help become your partner. And he's I like him. He's so snarky because he basically he meets you up and he says, "I must have got our dates wrong because I came here like Saturday morning, you weren't here, and I came here Sunday morning, you weren't here. I'll come and here you are, and you'll get a little bit of dialogue that says in your little dialogue thing. Clearly, he's saying he kept coming, you never turned up."
Yeah.
So he's like that. He doesn't ever say you're an idiot. He just is very snide. He's sort of like slightly snide about it. He warms up a little bit as you get to know, because you don't know him very much, or almost rivals at first. But as you sort of work, but you don't get to know him a little bit, and he sort of warms up to you. It's got some fine dialogue on it because there's a bit where he goes, "So what have you done about this murder?" And the chat you say, "Look, I asked him what I've done. The guy's still in the tree." And he goes, "The guy's still in the tree." And you go, "Yes." He said, "Well, not to matter. We'll get to that." And then you get a bit of dialogue pops that says, clearly from this way he said that, he does care that the guy's still in the tree. Because while you're doing this, okay, all the time, those sub skills are basically like parts of your mind.
Yeah. And
they're talking to you as you're going along. So all of a sudden he'll say something, and the character will mention something, and the encyclopedic sub-skill part of your brain will suddenly pop up a random fact about it. And sometimes you can talk back to it. You have like an internal dialogue with yourself. And it's like, I think there's like points where it comes up with a fact, he goes, "In what ways is it at all useful for what we're about to discuss?" And it goes, "Not really, but I thought it was interesting." And does all this all the whole time. So you're constantly having this, and sometimes parts of your brain will argue with each other. And one part will say, "Well, clearly this is going on." The other part will go, no, don't be silly. Clearly this is going on. And your brain will argue with each other.
Right.
And so forth. Yeah, it is quite weird how it works. So you have to solve this murder. And that's basically the process of the game. You basically have a start scratch. You don't know anything. You are trying to work out what you did. Because there's a lot of... So basically you're missing all your gear. You're missing all your clothing and stuff. Is maybe you've got like some rough clothing you had in the room. Oh, I had a heart attack in the first 5 minutes because I tried to get a bow tie from a fan. I didn't switch the fan off first, so when my character reached up for me, he failed his skill check roll and had a heart attack.
Oh, good job!
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, he survived, but I lost 1 health. So you have health. You have.
I was going to say, is that all you get for a heart attack these days? Damn.
He survived. Minus 1 health. So I only had 2 health, though, Skazz, to be fair.
Oh, okay, that's a bit more serious.
Your health, you have health and there's health and morale. Is your like 2 fail condition stats, and your health obviously goes to physical challenges and stuff, and when I say physical challenges, it can either be being punched or stubbing your toe. knocks her health off, and morale goes down. You can get stuff to improve it. You can like buy pickups and you just literally click and improve it.
I'm sorry, my head just instantly went to wow, man. You can die from stubbing your toe and a heart attack.
Yes,
damn.
Yes,
what a world.
I got insulted, and because my morale was already quite low, got insulted. I lost my morale, and then I had a mental breakdown. And I decided to quit being police, and I got a little newspaper headline saying, such and such police officer was last seen underneath a bridge shouting obscenities at teenagers. And that was basically, that was a game over for me then.
That's a normal day, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And then likewise, your health goes down. You have basically have a heart attack, collapse, and you die. And your brain says to you, well, had a good innings, here it comes. Just take one last breath, it's all right, it's fine, we'll be with you to the end. It's so that's basically all the basic mechanics. The gameplay itself is, so you have basically it's like your loot game, it's set in days.
Mm-hmm.
Time, however, only advances doing specific events or when you're talking to people. So you can wander around. If it says 8 a.m., you can wander around all you want without doing anything, and it will say 8 a.m. all the time. As soon as you start talking to people, as the conversation is happening,
as soon as you commit actions, then time starts to roll on. So you've got a limited number of actions you can do per day.
Yeah, and there's no sort of hard and fast limit to when time ends. I'm assuming, because it does say so. There's a message that comes that says most characters go to bed at 9 o'clock. Everybody goes to bed by 2 a.m. So the sort of implies is that you can keep playing. You can keep playing past 9 o'clock. It doesn't matter. In fact, you can't because to advance the next day you have to go to bed. Mm-hmm. You can't go to bed until it's gone 9 o'clock. So when 9 o'clock rolls around, you can keep playing. But I'm assuming come 2 o'clock, you've got your choice spot to go to bed because there's no one to speak to, and there's really nothing you can do. So there's sort of a limit to how long a day can last. But a day takes a long time to get through. So I'm now on day 4, and I've played this game for 24 hours. So it takes quite a while to get through a day.
Sure.
Because it's and once I tell hours, it's not a lot. It's like only a minute or two at a time. So you get a hell of a lot done in a day. It's quite good actually. First day, I was trying to run out of things because the only way to sort of advance at first, you realize you could. There's 2 ways to advance time artificially. You can either sit on a bench or you can read a book. And I didn't have the money for the book. I didn't know about the benches at first. So the first day, I was just going around just talking to people, just trying to get the clock up to 9 o'clock so I go to bed.
Sure.
But anyway, I was like, I don't know if you could go sit on a bench and time would advance anyway. So yeah, that's how it starts. And basically you're sort of, the guy's murdered. You find out he's involved. There's like a union dispute going on, which you have to get involved with, where the unions are sort of the dock work. There's a dock workers here, and the union there is sort of fighting the sort of company who employs them, because the union has like some crazy demands, and they're fighting the company that actually owns the docks. And they're clearly involved in the dispute that's gone on as well. So you're sort of having to talk and deal with them and try and get into it. You try not to show too much one way or the other, but you kind of have to get involved with them because it's early on. You find out that you're missing as a police officer. Not only missing your uniform, you're also missing your gun and your ID badge.
None of that's important.
Yeah, no, it's but you basically find out that the gun's being almost held hostage by the union. It's like, oh, well, I'm sure we'll find it if we keep looking. Maybe if we head to some stuff to help, we might be able to find it quicker. So it's like, there's a bit early on where you can ring your police station where you come from, and you go on to the police station, and you have to admit that you've lost your gun and your thing, and they absolutely take the piss out of you. All your buddies at the police station just take the piss out of you constantly, and they're like calling people through to the room where they're really on the radio to take the piss out of you, and it goes on for some time. You're basically just being kicked down and down again. It's like, I feel
there you
so
go.
shit
You've lost one of your health points. You might as well just go and have a heart attack.
I think you lose a morale point doing that. Yeah, I think you actually lose a morale point doing that. I mean, most of the characters quite the storyline's very interesting. It's surprisingly, it's more depth than I was expecting. It's had me pretty hooked. Sort of this game I've been firing up whenever I sort of had some time to spend with it. But I was like, want to spend a lot of time, but I don't want to fire up for 10 minutes. I want to like be able to say, right, I'm in it for the next 2-3 hours.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. There's quite a few sort of characters. I mean, some of the characters are quite some well-written characters. Some of the characters I grew to really hate. There's this little lad called Kuno, and he is a little fucking brat. And he's like, oh, that's cute. At one point, he tries to get in trouble by saying, oh no, the policeman is fiddling me. He's trying to pull my trousers down. And he tries to get you in trouble. And you fire this meeting because he's throwing rocks at the dead body. Just throwing rocks at him and trying to hit him in the dick.
As you do.
Yeah, and there's a little bit later on where I realise he's the culprit for like some minor misdemeanor. I actually said out loud, fucking Kuno, I'm going to have him.
Yeah, little bastard.
I just went straight there to have a word with him and tell him off. I could feel because characters can basically run or walk. I could just feel my character like stomping. I could imagine him stomping. I was like, "What have you done now?" I was getting real like, "Fucking shoot! I'm gonna have him." Bloody little brat.
Just grab him, pick him up by the collar. Oi, you're nicked.
You did find out later on. There's actually he's not had a good upbringing, shall we say, which explains a lot why he's a little brat.
No kidding.
But yeah, there's lots of little neat bits. I mean, I'm quite impressed, given how complicated it is, that I thought this would be a game where it'd be very easy to get soft locked out of the progression. Mm-hmm. But actually, no, it's very well designed. So I've been reading, but very careful what I've been reading online because I don't want to spoil anything. I've seen what people do with it, and a lot of people said no one seems to have had any issues being. There's a couple who've had some minor ones, but in general, it's very hard to get soft locked. In this game, so you can't progress. I did have one bit where I did have one bug which really annoyed me. I had to get past this guy to get in, and he was like this. He's this racist, muscle-bound guy who basically goes on how his race is a superior race, and you're just a weakling compared to him, and you are disgraced to your race and disgusting. He basically completely berates you and just Manfred says, yeah, you're not as good as me. You're not as good as me. And you have the option to punch him.
Right.
And the option had a 17% chance of success. I had this option. And I had nothing else to do. I thought, fuck it. Clicked it. And I fucking punched him, didn't I?
Nah.
Fucking succeeded. It's like, shit, I succeeded, right? Got past him, got where I need to go, because I knocked him on the ground. And it was quite funny. You punch him, then you spin him down to the ground, and he's guarding this button. And last thing he says, push the button. Push the button and shout, disco.
Right.
So I pushed it. Yeah. So you can it's some responses affect how your cops sort of viewed by our character. So I pushed the button and got through to the other bit. At which point I went to another dialogue, but the game got stuck. And I couldn't get out of it.
All right.
And I had to reload. And I hadn't saved since I'd done that. I was like, that's a 70% chance of that happening again. So I was like, well, I got past it before. I want to get past it again. So I tried again, failed. I did it about another 6 times. So I eventually rolled that 17% and got through again. It's like, I got it once. I'm going to do it again. It's not my fault the game crashed. It should have auto-saved that point, in my opinion. But there we go. You also have your brain, because you'll basically there's a lot of... So the world it's set in is... I want to call it fantasy, but it's probably more accurately referred to. It's probably more accurate to say sci-fi. So it's set in a world roughly, and analogous with our sort of Europe part of our world, roughly. In that sort of continents there's clear sort of like continents based on like France, or countries based on France, countries based on like more Oriental areas and so forth. But it's a mismatch. So like the guy who you're working with, he's got a French accent, but he's clearly looks quite sort of Japanese, but he's got like a French accent to him. So it's all a bit of mismatch, but it's all clear what they're sort of going for. I sort of try to work out when sort of it's set, sort of not just to us. They've got computers, they've got, but the computers feel probably say, my gut feeling is it feels like equivalent to like 1970s.
So it sounds like current day Yarmouth then.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, it's very much like Yarmouth. I said that. The computers they've got are like quite big and bulky and chunky. Their vehicles basically look like sort of 19, they look like they took the sort of horse and carriage sort of design, but just kept it and just made it into vehicles. So like the big police car looks like a horse and carriage with a massive engine on the back.
Yeah.
So that's all they're saying they're going for. So it's probably technically sci-fi, but to me it feels more like fantasy.
Sure.
I don't know why. It just feels like. I mean, it's got some interesting elements. There's this place called in the world they're in, like between all the sort of areas, there's a place called the Pale, and it's this area where physics don't work. Nothing works. So, like, if you go into the Pale, if a ship goes into the Pale, all of a sudden, propellers don't work anymore because there's nothing for them to push against.
Sure. Okay.
It's a weird place. It's quite freaky actually because it's implied the Pale's getting bigger and expanding very slowly. Very slowly. It's going to take centuries, but it's gradually getting bigger.
Yeah, but centuries means it's not your problem, but it's going to be someone's problem, and they're not going to like it.
No, exactly. So it's gradually getting bigger. And there's a little bit later on, you might find a piece of the Pale on the island somewhere. Quite weird. It's very weird. It's got, and that's actually quite sort of a freaky thought because they can travel through it. I don't know. They seem the airships seem to work to go through it. They seem to like sort of force themselves through it, but it affects your brain when you go through it. So like normal civilians only have to go through 4 days a year, have to have 4 days of exposure a year, or if you're a government official, allowed up to 26 days a year exposure to it. So it's weird. It's almost like sort of nuclear power. It's almost like sort of nuclear radiation type sort. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically background. That's not really a place to. The actual main plot line is very mundane. It is just about a murder case. It's these from what I've played. It's a very mundane plot line, but it's definitely a rich universe. Apparently, it's the guy who wrote this. I think it's either a very small studio or it's a one-man band type job. Because the guy who formed the game to make this, he previously wrote a novel in 2013 set in the same universe. The game's set in the same universe, but it's not based on the novel.
Okay. So
it's a completely different storyline, but set in the same place. So, but apparently the novel's not translated. Is this game? What country is he from? I can't remember. The novel's not in English.
All right.
So, but apparently there's going to be an English translation coming out. So I might pick up when it comes out because I'm quite intrigued by this world. It is a. I don't want to go too much because I don't want to reveal or see any spoilers because it's a story, heavily story-driven game. It is all about the story.
Sure.
There is no. There's no combat in it at all. There's no shooty hacks. There's no skill. You're saying about your gameplay of one mouse. You can play this game with just a mouse.
Sure.
You don't need anything at all. Literally, all you need is left click, right click, and that's it. That's all you need to make the game work.
Mm-hmm.
So really straightforward. But the story is so. I'm really loving the story so much, and the music's so good.
So I looked it up, and it was something like £30, £35.
Yeah.
Would you say is that worth it?
Actually, yes, I would.
Really?
Yeah. So the game, I said it's set in different days. Apparently, the day it has got an actual end date if you don't complete it in time.
Yeah, it's the same 10. With stuff like Shenmue, and that has a soft ending.
Yeah, day 10. If you don't complete the game by day 10, the game ends for you. Apparently, on average, most players complete at day 7.
Okay.
But there's a few, so they probably plan that to give you a bit of leeway in case you weren't a bit slow on the uptake. But so I'm on day 4, and I feel I'm starting. But every time I sort of feel I've got the answer what's going on, so I find another layer to it, and some more stuff gets unravelled. So I feel I've got something to do. And definitely some strange stuff, and it feels also a lot of little storylines feel quite random. They feel like they're sort of all tied together. They feel like all these little threads are randomly starting to pull together into like a whole. But interesting actually when I complete it, what that actually looks like at the end. Mm-hmm. But actually, the amount of enjoyment I got out of it, I'd pay that for.
Yeah, I was going to say £30, £35. From what I've seen of it, that seems a bit steep for me.
Well, honestly, the amount of enjoyment I've got out of it.
Well, I mean, considering the fact that you can buy like enhanced editions of Neverwinter Nights and stuff like that for less. And they
was quite an old game, though, to be fair.
But they're largely the same game.
Well, I've not played Neverwinter. I played Neverwinter Nights 2, which I hated. So I can't sort of comment on that. But Neverwinter Nights. But no, I honestly, I would say this is worth £35. Definitely.
Fair enough.
I love some of the stats I've been getting as well. it collects stats about you, and I unlocked today. It unlocked today because it said something like, 'cause I'm a very boring cop. So you get stats based on what sort of cop personality you are. So the possible. So I've got for my stats, I've got superstar cop 2 points, apocalypse cop 2 points, sorry cop 10 points, and boring cop 8 points. I'm not sure how. I think boring cop is basically. I think sorry cop means you apologise a lot. And say, I'm sorry I did that to you, and then you get the sorry cop points. But more sternly, it's like there's like a political point you get for defense, like sort of when you sort of support different ideologies.
Right.
So currently, I've got 8 points into communists, 7 points into ultra liberal, 11 points into moralists, and rather worryingly, 6 points in fascist.
That sounds about right.
Sure. Well, thanks. Good cop, bad cop, and rated 18. I don't know how that works. Because good cop / bad cop rating 18. Does that mean I'm more of a good cop or bad cop? I don't know. But I've got 4 honor. So that's something.
There you go. For honor. He's a fascist. For honor. For honor.
Yeah. So, but yeah, really, yeah, I can't believe I don't want to say much more about spoiling it, to be honest with you. But yeah, I've absolutely loved it. I do think it's a game that if you have to like a story-driven game, if you want some degree of combat in there or some degree of, perhaps a bit more sort of platforming puzzle, a bit more action stuff in there, then this won't be the game for you. But if you're happy just to play a game which is just story-based, and this is a really good game. Yeah. So I recommend it. So, Middlemeister, if that's the sort of game you would like to play this. But I don't want to talk about the games I know you play. This might not be your cup of tea.
Well, no offense to Middlemeister, but let's be fair, we'll probably only play a third of it and say it's game of the year. So
probably you'll probably play halfway through the first day.
Yeah, there you go. It's like, hey, did it.
Yeah, I looked at the guy in the tree and went, hey.
And there you go. It's done. It's the best game ever.
A little bit rather about it. It took me the best part of 3 days to get the guy out of the tree. So,
So you spent 2 of them just looking at it going, yep.
Well, no, because the trouble was I had to find someone who because I couldn't get him out of the tree because the way he was tied up was like material he had identity was breaking down. So I had to find someone to get him out of the tree for me. And it took a while to find someone to get him out of the tree for us. So,
because you've looked up system specs on it as well.
I imagine virtually nothing. Intel
Core i7 or AMD 1800 equivalent, 8 gigs of RAM, and a GTX 1060.
It's a bit bizarre. It's not that. I don't know where it's because it's not that. It's not. It looks very pretty.
20 gigs of space.
I love the store. I love the art style of it as well. It's sort of like watercolors with you on top of it. It is 3D. It is actually 3D, but it doesn't look it.
Yeah.
But it's like I love the art style. It looks beautiful. So the world's just so engrossing. It's great. So there we go.
Fantastic.
Right. So that's all I have got, Skazz.
Yep, that's it. I've got nothing.
Awesome. Right. Well, we'll draw this one to a close. So, thank you for watching on the TheSuffolkRam.
Skazzius.
So you can join us again on our next podcast, which will be on the 27th of March, which will actually be our anniversary of our first lockdown podcast.
Yep. So
we'll have done a whole year not seeing each other, basically.
It's fantastic for you, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, it's been great doing this remote. Yay.
I will say, regardless, it's as far as production is concerned, it's really easy. So
it's a lot easier, to be fair.
Yeah,
I've heard I've heard the podcast I've been listening to basically said when it's all over, they're just going to carry on. Because they sort of one podcast I follow, a few of their members, they said quite a few people used to come in and out. These sites cycle through hosts. And a few moved away, some went abroad, and gradually it dwindled down. Now they're doing it remotely. Those guys can come in again.
Yeah.
So they actually say, well, we might as well they're going to carry on doing it remotely once it's all over because they can have these people in the podcast then as well still.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, like, look at us and game night. We wouldn't be able to have Zaber in if we weren't doing it over the internet kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So on to game night. You can join us for game night every Tuesday at approximately 8:30 on twitch.tv/SuffolkRam
and twitch.tv/Skazz, SK4ZZI0US.
So you can catch us on that. But yeah, so see us on the 27th. Thank you for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you guys then.
Marvelous.